what we see is the use of this approach called undetectable content. So what that means is you have content generated by AI, but you want to make sure that it passes an AI detector. And Google is using these things. We're hearing from the inside, like Gail at Authority Hackers, who is a page quality rater guideline himself. He's published reports. He's talked about this where on the inside of Google, they are looking at that criteria. Does this content actually pass the radar of an AI detector, which is simply all about predicting how robotic the sentence sounds. And in the past 11 years, I've studied the art of writing, and what I see is that people don't respond well if your writing sounds robotic. So really, this is all pushing us to become, in the end, better writers.
You are listening to Power Marketing with Kevin Lee. Kevin and his agency Did It have helped thousands of businesses win through superior marketing, as have his books, articles, speaking engagements, and the eMarketing Association Power Marketing podcasts. Here's Kevin.
I'm super excited to be chatting with Julia McCoy, who's the president of Content at Scale, and we'll both be at the Brighton SEO conference coming up pretty soon. So wanted to start off with the session you'll be doing at Brighton. Wanted to, you'll be talking about SEO and AI, which is a hot topic at the moment. So what elements of AI and content will you cover in an SEO context?
Yes, Kevin. Well, it's great to be here with you. Yes, great question. So I come from a background of writing full time. I wrote long form SEO content, had a team of 100 writers, and I have fully adapted to where I actually sold my writing agency, got completely out of it in 21, and now I work in AI full time. So what I believe, what I'll be sharing at Brighton SEO is how the future of SEO content is in AI, but we still have to embed our human touch, and how we do that, how we approach it is going to be critical going into this really a whole new age of AI in content. So I know that's something we'll talk about on the podcast as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much. Well, there's certainly a lot of worry around AI, and it's not just that they're going to, kill their human hosts. It's an SEO specific worry that there'll be the sort of if you're going to use AI to help you with content or help you create content, that it'll get detected by Google and Bing, and you'll somehow end up getting penalized as a result. So is joint human AI collaboration the solution to that, so that you can sort of feel confident that your content is high quality and not flagged as AI generated?
Yes. Well, last year, as we all know, AI was such a wild west, and Google was just a mess. It was a mess to follow all their updates. At first, in April of last year, 2022, they were saying that AI generated content is going to get penalized. That headline came out on Search Engine Journal. We saw people at Google saying that. And then in the fall, Google was called out on Twitter because there was an entire high profile website ranking with straight AI generated content. So Google got tagged. Danny Sullivan stepped in and said, well, and he said this publicly in a tweet, we haven't said AI content is bad. Yes, she did. That's another topic. So they pretty much backtracked everything they said in April. And then they began to rename and update their webmaster quality guidelines, and they renamed them search quality guidelines. And so the changes they made in these guidelines were taking the word AI generated content and adding spammy in front of it. So no longer was AI content itself taboo. It was the act of spamming Google that was taboo, which you could argue has been true since the beginning of Google. So in other words, don't spam Google and don't use AI to do it. And this year, where we land in 2023 with Google's helpful content update, with the emphasis of that extra E, which they added in December to the E quality rater guidelines, adding in experience on top of expertise, authority, and trust into our content, that really solidifies the fact that we have to approach our content from a human angle. Is this going to read like a human wrote it, number one? And number two, is it actually going to help the end human that is consuming it? And if so, then you're meeting that quality rater guideline, which is all about the usefulness, the helpfulness of that content. So we have to think about that when we're generating content with AI. We can absolutely use AI. I believe that if we're sitting in front of a blank draft, or we're hiring writers and we're working from scratch, that we are wasting our time. I think that is dead, gone by the wayside. But how we treat content that comes out of the AI engine is going to be what takes our content into that zone of Google proof, SEO proof.
Yeah, that's a really valid point. And I think one thing that's been true forever as well has been, create the content first for the human, right? Because if it's solving a human's problem or enhancing the educational level of a human, that in the end, that is what Google would like to rank, right? Because their mission is to help humans. So how you get there, right? Whether it's some combination of 100% human or 95% AI with a human oversight, I think if you make the argument that this was extremely valuable to the human, probably Google would want it in its index. So that's sort of the perspective I've taken. Do you feel like that's the sort of current prognosis on sort of where, that as long as it's great for consumers, that Google will probably let it pass?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And the big term, we talk a lot about a continent scale, and we see among our own users, we just passed 2,000 users, and we have a predominantly SEO marketer base, although that is evolving as we launch new features. But what we see is the use of this approach called undetectable content. So what that means is you have content generated by AI, but you want to make sure that it passes an AI detector. And Google is using these things. We're hearing from the inside, like Gail at Authority Hackers, who is a page quality rater guideline himself. He's published reports. He's talked about this, where on the inside of Google, they are looking at that criteria. Does this content actually pass the radar of an AI detector, which is simply all about predicting how robotic the sentence sounds. And in the past 11 years, I've studied the art of writing, and what I see is that people don't respond well if your writing sounds robotic. So really, this is all pushing us to become, in the end, better writers, because even if we're not starting from scratch, and the reason I wouldn't do that anymore is you can just save so much time by using AI. You save time and cost that just are significant. So once you adapt to that, it's that human approach that takes that content into that zone of undetectable. Although, one of the reasons I'm at continent scale is one of the features of this tool is it writes undetectable content straight out of the gate. So it actually passes AI detection, even though it's written by AI. So I would say, it takes the human, but I think eventually, especially with the right tools, we're going to see a progression to where the human work involved is going to be less and less as AI gets better and better and better, and it passes AI detection straight out of the gate. So it's interesting where this is headed. I think we're going to see 95% of content creation taken off the backs of humans, which allows us to honestly do better work, because content creation is such a grind. We get freed up to go make relationships happen, to go make more money in our businesses. So in the end, it's a good change. It's just, how do we adapt is going to be the big question.
Right. Well, certainly with regards to SEO, most folks are still thinking about content creation from a textual copy perspective, but there's a whole wave of AI tools that are now getting into the ability to create audio, create video, create images. And YouTube's the second largest search engine, right? So that's video.
Yes.
And do you have any sort of, thoughts about whether or not we'll start to see, deep fake style SEO content for video show up in YouTube? And do you think Google will probably have a similar point of view on that, or do you feel like that's probably a line that they're not going to let get crossed, is to have AI generated video content? And obviously audio could be musical audio, or it could be voice-based audio. It could be this podcast could be generated with audio only by somebody an AI trained on my voice and trained on your voice. But no, we're real. So
for now,
in the future,
might change.
AI is just moving so quickly. So do you have any thoughts on predictions on how AI deployed into the visual image and video and audio landscape?
Yes. Yeah, that's a great question. I think that text was really where AI has made some massive strides, and that's the entry point. Next, it is just like you said, visuals, audio, video. And what we're seeing right now is this rush to something called AGI, and AGI is coming this fall, 2023, and it stands for artificial general intelligence. And what that is AI that is so intelligent that it really does sound a lot like a human, but we're still in that text era. So it's almost perfected content. I mean, I teach the craft framework. I teach writers to go through this content, make it their own. It's not perfect, but what's going to happen next? And we saw this in the US Copyright Office this January, trying to get a hold of some of this Wild West, because it really is the Wild West right now. And they were able to pass a law on the tech side to where the copyright ownership belongs to whoever owns the AI tool. But in the end, the copyright pass down doesn't happen unless you make that content your own. So it's the human factor that actually establishes copyright. But that whole debacle was contained within the text section of AI. Midjourney was sued by artists, and those artists lost, but there was no law yet passed for that. There's nothing that's been done for any of those areas, the images or the video. And these platforms like YouTube, TikTok, what they're combating right now are, in fact, deep fakes. And TikTok, as of September, just launched this label, AI generated content, that they're now attaching onto anything that is a deep fake. So they're detecting AI generated video content and attaching a label, basically saying, oh, hey, you need to be aware this is not a real human. And of course, that lowers trust. Humans in the end, we respond to humans. Although I'm not saying it takes a human to make that initial touch. Like, you could be reading an AI generated blog that says it's by Julia, but AI fully wrote that. And trust is not going to be disrupted if the integrity of that content is true to my voice, which AI is in fact capable of doing. Like, we're in that age. But on the video and audio and imagery side, it's a lot harder to get that right. Yeah. I've seen what 11 Labs can do, what Synthesia is doing, and there are tools like those that are able to create deep fakes where you're just typing and you on the screen, your voice changes, what you say changes, like it can be modified in seconds without anyone having to actually film themselves. But what that creates is this, it's not perfect yet. Like, you can still kind of tell those videos apart from the videos where it's like you and me just having a conversation. Those videos build trust. So we haven't arrived at perfection in that yet. But I do think we probably will. We'll be able to create entire videos of ourselves. I think it's coming. And it's just, again, how will it be used? Where do we put that? Is that like the first touch for our consumer? And then it's a live Zoom because maybe they won't move forward on a high ticket purchase without that live call. So we just have to ask ourselves, where do we put these incredible time-saving content creation opportunities? Where do we put that in the user journey? And where do we put ourselves or our team? And if we get it right, like, we can really automate and remove hours and hours and hours of time and the cost of staff. That can really go down. And then we just, I've seen in Content at Scale, for example, we have agencies that are taking one writer, 10xing their work, and then putting them on strategy calls that they could never have time before to do, and then building up rapport with clients so much more, making more money. So it's not like an approach of, well, who can I fire and who can I fully replace with AI? Instead, it's like, how do I actually augment what somebody amazing is doing, replace them, have AI do the content, the video, and have them actually doing better work. And if we think about that and we're actually open to AI, I know there's a lot of resistance right now, but if we're open to it, we think like that, and we spend the time, take the time to research the right tools, like, life can really get a lot better thanks to AI.
Yeah, it's interesting. A little tangent that we can take that's not necessarily SEO related, but obviously the Screen Actors Guild and writers' opinions are pretty worried about AI. But it does bring up a really interesting marketing point, which is, marketers who attach themselves to, either create a star themselves, like Flow for Progressive, or in some cases create a star that they wish they hadn't, like Jared and Subway, could be insulated from the risk of either escalating paychecks. I'm sure
Good
Flo makes a good
point.
living, or reputational risk by creating an AI spokesperson. So I don't think anybody's really done any of these at scale, but I have heard, within the creative community that people are starting to play with that, as well as the creation of AI influencers, right, who are completely virtual. And of course, an
Yes.
AI influencer could then also be licensed out to influence a purchase of product in the same way that a human influencer could have a licensing deal. So it's just really fascinating to think about, once they do perfect it, like, where does that take, marketing beyond SEO, like from the perspective of trust. Can I build trust with a virtual human? Or does it have to be a human?
That's the question. The $1 million question.
Well, but back to SEO, one of the questions I get a lot from clients and prospects is this prospect of future-proofing SEO as the LLMs, in particular at this point, ChatGPT, both directly and powering Bing, as well as Google Bard, answering questions directly with no SERP, right? When a person asks for a top 10 list or places to go or things to do, it pretty much skips the SERP. And so part of future-proofing SEO is the idea, like, oh, well, I'd like to be in a greater percentage of those responses. If somebody asks one of the LLMs a question that relates to my product, my service, or my brand. So do you have any thoughts of how to future-proof your SEO to when there is no SERP?
Yes. I think, what we're going to see is a gradual change. I don't think that the behavior of years of users in Google will rapidly change. Like, we expect to see results. We expect those results to be either humanly curated or 100% on a human driven site. So I think just knowing that, like, that won't change overnight. And it all revolves around trust, right? Like, it's hard to trust something that's generated by AI. We always, as a human, we want to see, where did that actually come from? Especially the judicious human that's doing a search and they're getting ready to buy something. There's intent there to take a next step, to learn how to do something, learn a new trade, learn how to start publishing a book, like big questions like that. You're not necessarily going to want what AI generated in 3 paragraphs. It's just not. So the behavior of users, we have to think about not just what Google wants to happen or what ChatGPT is trending right now. Like, what will the user actually want in the end? Because everything will revolve around that. So if we think about that, then I think it's time to actually double down on content that serves users at a very high level. So something that we're doing at Content at Scale and Content Hacker, the 2 brands that I manage, we're thinking about all the questions that users would have around AI, and we're creating the most in-depth guides that we can on those topics. So we're doing like a whole library, and some of these questions could be looked at as very top of funnel. Potentially, if you listen to some SEOs, potentially a waste of time because top of funnel content can be answered by SGE. But how we see it is, if we have that, even if it's a small, like a dwindling percentage, if we capture whatever percentage that is of the user that still has that high trust need, and that won't change, and that is somebody that needs to click and see the full guide and get real help. So if that still exists, we know it does because human behavior hasn't changed, even though AI itself is changing how we do content, then those are the users we want to cater to in our marketing strategy, because the high intent of purchasing behind that is just, it's incredible. So with these long form in-depth guides around SEO keywords, we're focusing on answering every question that they would have. And it's funny because, Brian Dean did this years and years ago with Backlinko. Like, this is not a new strategy. We're using AI to formulate this content 10 times faster, but we're still creating a mass of content to answer specific questions. And the traffic that we do lose to SGE, I would ask yourself, was it valuable anyway if they had such a low intent that they were willing to let AI answer that question? So if we think about this from that perspective, the user intent themselves, well, that user, they need more information. They need to read from a real, Google has that extra E, experience. They need to read from somebody that has real experience on that topic. Well, here's how to publish a book, but here's my experience on what went wrong. So you don't hire the wrong book formatter. So you don't waste thousands of dollars on the wrong editor. Like, those are the things I can speak to publishing a book. And those are the things that in the end will help somebody looking to publish their book for the first time. So if you think about that and that deep experience come from that angle, I don't think you'll lose even if in this new age of SGE.
Yeah, obviously we'll have to wait and see. What's interesting, as sort of, my perspective on that is, in addition to just great content creation in the way that you described, it answers a lot of questions up and down the funnel. If you look at how LLMs are databases are structured and how they work, it actually takes us back to the original PageRank algorithm, right? Which was based on a voting algorithm where higher authority sites convey more relevance to the places that they link to, which is essentially a vote, but it's not an equal vote that every site gets through linking. Obviously, PageRank has changed and Google's algorithm has changed a lot, but LLMs are essentially, using all the data that they can find, right? So as a result, we generally recommend a digital PR strategy of syndicating as much content out as much as possible outside of your own domain that talks positively about you and educates people about you, your brand, your product, the solutions that you deliver. Because, as the LLMs accumulate all of that information that's all over the place, each of those that reinforces your brand as being one of the top 10 pizza places in New York or one of the top 10 Caribbean cruise vacation destinations or whatever it is, right? That's essentially aggregated up from all over the place. And at the same time, if you're still doing that, it has direct SEO benefits, right? Because even if you're just one more link in a SERP because you had something great written about you somewhere else as a result of digital PR or syndicated content, it's sort of like a win-win because it future-proofs your LLM as well as also giving you, a second bite at the apple in the SERP. So what is your general content syndication strategy now under sort of the current algorithms? Are you, when a piece of content is created, it could live a lot of places. It could live on the client's root domain. It could live on their LinkedIn page as a published article. It could live a lot of different places. So how do you advise folks on where to syndicate content that's being created?
Yes. Yeah. Just a hat tip. I love your strategy on digital PR. We're recommending the exact same. PR is huge with Google looking at entities and that evolving as a big way that search ranking is happening. Wikipedia is a huge entity. If you have a Wikipedia page, you automatically get more authority. So things like that, critical now more than ever with the LLMs looking at all of these things too and going, oh, which is high authority here. So that's a great strategy. With syndication, our focus is always publishing the best content on our site, giving our site that full runway to actually have all the authority for that piece of content. And then what we'll do is often repurpose that content, take little bits, maybe do TikTok scripts. We'll do LinkedIn carousel scripts, have that formatted, built, tweets, just break it down into smaller pieces of content and repurpose from there. We'll also, we're looking into getting more distribution going inside of press outlets. That's going to be, I think, a big move for us in 2024 is adding that, not replacing, but just adding it into our existing strategies. How do we get more of the right mentions, not just news for the sake of news, but things that matter? How do we get that into the highly curated, humanly picked news outlets and lists? So that's our approach. It's pretty simple. The main core of the content, the long form piece, lives on our site. We let it have its authority there. We don't duplicate it anywhere else, but we do fragment it down, repurpose it, and create all kinds of short form goodness from that long form piece.
All right. So that's the catchphrase. Short form goodness is going to be our catchphrase.
Love it.
So, you've obviously had an opportunity, in pitching clients and in just sort of seeing what people are doing. You're probably seeing people make general SEO mistakes, but also SEO mistakes specific to AI. Are there any that you would call out that you tend to see more often than not?
Yes. It's interesting because I will be sharing some of this in my Brighton SEO talk. I would say the biggest error that I see website owners, marketers, anyone that is involved in SEO campaigns, they're still making is that, oh, a writer could be hired and that writer will automatically be better than AI. That is still I would say, number one misconception because of how advanced AI is. But until you fire up the right AI tool, you don't actually know that. So yes, what you see is often a lot of just ChatGPT garbage output that I would never publish on a site because it's duplicate, it's not fact-based, it's often BS. So yeah, if you just see that, you're going to automatically think to yourself, well, I need to go hire a writer. But the truth is with tools, especially the one I work for, the reason I'm even here is because I found a tool stack that replaces me as a writer. It writes undetectable, original, high quality content that Google will actually rank. And there's proven case studies on it. And in my Brighton talk, I'll be doing a litmus test to see the people in the room get their perception on AI content and hopefully shatter some of these myths that they still believe. I'll be sharing with them 2 pieces of content, one written by human, fully, no AI, and one 100% written by RAI, and I'll have them guess. So it'll be really interesting because I'll tell you the one that was written by human, what you run into with humans is a lack of, especially human writers, a lack of knowledge around SEO formatting. SEO formatting is tough to get right if you're a writer because most writers, they like to go down rabbit holes. I'm a writer, I do myself, but the rabbit hole is not what Google wants. Google wants targeted, clear, concise content on that topic. So AI can actually be a better vehicle to getting to that end goal of well-formatted, concise, well-written content with the caveat you have to edit it to make it your own, humanly optimize it. But in this test, like you'll see the human writer in particular, the sample that I picked, they didn't have a real knowledge of SEO content. So the content they wrote sounded super fluffy. It was off topic. It was verbose. It was not accurate to what the reader actually wanted to read about. And then AI completely nailed the topic. So I think it'll really open up some minds as to what's possible with AI. It's hard because a lot of, especially people in SEO, they're so advanced. They have so much experience that it's almost an insult that AI can be as good as me. But if we're open to this new frontier, it can just save us dramatic amounts of time and cost. So that's what I hope to bring to the Brighton SEO talk, and something I'm really excited to share, because as a writer, I would spend 8 hours on one of these long form posts and be working late. I get to step away sooner now. I'm not a writer. My life is more the president. But if I was a writer, like my day ends, and I have freelancers I've shown how to use this process, how to use content at scale. Their day is ending at noon. They get to step away, go hike, do whatever. So like you can really open up your day as an SEO, as a writer, as a business owner, whenever you rely on the right AI tools.
Absolutely. Well, clearly your favorite is content at scale for creation of textual content. But most folks are first going to probably experience either Bard or ChatGPT.
Right.
Do you feel like either of those, assuming they're not ready to make the jump yet to your platform, but do you feel like either of those is superior at content creation, or really better just at ideation, and then needs a lot of handholding by a writer to fix if they're going to use theirs and not yours?
Yes, I've seen tests between Bard and ChatGPT, and I've seen ChatGPT definitely win in the creativity department. But I've also seen, there's periods of time, like days, weeks, where you'll catch ChatGPT writing just not even close to creative. So it depends on the stage of learning the LLMs are in. I think this fall, a lot of that will be eradicated with AGI. So we will see ChatGPT just nail, like if you ask it for a business name, and you need something creative to touch a specific market, like give me 10 business name ideas, you're going to see it nail those ideas. Right now, not so much. A month ago, it was doing great. It fell on its face again in November. The last few tests I run, I was like, oh, I can't even recommend one of these terms in my coaching calls. But I think we're going to see a lot of that just evolve so rapidly. And what I use ChatGPT for 100% is ideation. It's the best $20 I pay. It's the greatest little tool just to open up and go, hey, I need some ideas for an email campaign. Help me write a headline. So things like that. I just would never rely on it for the bulk of my content or my strategy, because ChatGPT does not actually research its facts. And OpenAI says this, the LLM by itself, it's kind of like an alphabet without structure, right? So you're using something that has no compass in terms of truth or fact. So if you know that, you're aware of that, just use it with that in mind. It's a great tool for ideation. I think Bard has a ways to go in the creativity department, but it's doing pretty well with current facts, better than ChatGPT. As in, like, if you ask it what happened in the news last week, it does have more knowledge of that than ChatGPT.
Right, right. Well, I've had a few opportunities to see, I guess what they call the AI hallucinations, where, it comes up with something that's completely non-factual, but reads as if it's factual. I actually just published a post on the Marketing Association where I asked Bard about some litigation between Did It and Overture back from 2021 to just see what it knew about it. And it got it completely wrong. Right.
Oh, dear.
ChatGPT didn't have any opinion on it at all. Apparently, it didn't have access to the same data points. But whatever data points Bard was using were way off. And so if you use that information, you would be very mistaken. So when it comes to health and legal opinions and a bunch of other categories, I think people probably still need to do different research rather than rely on AI, because the AI hallucinations can be pretty far off.
Yes, 100% agree.
Have you seen any AI hallucinations yourself, or not yet?
Yes, I have. I use ChatGPT for speaker bios and things like that. We're launching this live event. I've asked it, help me write a bio for this person, thinking it was like a well-known person, and it completely fabricated it. What it did was it put John Jantz as some owner of a store in a super weird niche related to pets. This is the owner of Duct Tape Marketing, a podcast with 300 episodes. It's like just fabricating some story. I shared that with John, and he's like, Julia, that sounds like a fun job. Maybe that should be in my bio.
That's one of the alternate universe jobs that he has. It's a parallel universe for that one.
I think so.
So what has you excited about the next year? I mean, obviously you've got your own product roadmap going on and some new stuff happening there, and some new stuff in AI and within the community. So anything in particular that has you excited?
Yes. Next year, I'm actually hosting a live event here in Austin, Texas, Content Hacker Live. So Content Hacker is my brand. I actually sold it to Content at Scale for a partnership stake in both companies. That's how much I believe in AI. I got no plan B now. I'm all in on AI. But this event I'm really, really excited about. We confirmed Elena Cardone last week as an opening headliner. And the goal here is just to get people together who are excited about the future of AI in content, learning together in the same room in real life. So I think it's interesting that we can see AI take so much off of our workday, because the benefit of that is we can have more in real life interactions, which, in 2020, we really didn't get a lot of that. I think the world needs more of that. So it's really interesting. I think that a side effect, a good thing of, the Terminators taking over is that we can actually get back together as humans and spend more time just with one another. So that's something I'm really excited to cultivate next year. Bring that to Content Hacker Live, just humans in the room talking about the robots. It's going to be a good year.
Yeah, well, the robots will be listening, so it's just as well because we'll be publishing all those talks out, and the robots will know.
We'll put
So
them to
events are
work.
definitely back. Relaunching events under the Marketing Association and Investor and Beyond Ordinary Events and the C-Suite Network, both of which have a big events focus. So I agree with you. There's a pent-up demand for human interaction among humans, and so we'll see a lot of that over the next year.
Yes, love it.
So thanks so much for joining me and sharing your wisdom as it relates to deployment of AI into the content creation context, specifically for SEO purposes and in general. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Kevin. This was a blast. Great conversation.
Kevin Lee's Power Marketing is available on all your favorite podcast networks. Kevin loves helping businesses excel at marketing. Having marketing challenges? Just like Santa in The Miracle on 34th Street, if Kevin can't help you, he'll know someone who can. Find him on LinkedIn, subscribe, or follow.